Last night, what should have been a simple promotional interview turned into the talk show confrontation of the year when Jon Bernthal walked off the set of Jimmy Kimmel Live, after the host crossed every line in the book. Viewers watched in shock as Kimmel's jokes became personal attacks that pushed the respected actor to his breaking point. The studio lights seemed extra bright as Jon Bernthal walked onto the set of Jimmy Kimmel Live. The audience cheered wildly. Bernthal was there to talk about his new action movie, Final Strike, where he plays a former soldier fighting to save his hometown. With his trademark smile, Bernthal took a seat across from Kimmel, completely unaware of what was about to happen. "Welcome to the show, Jon," Kimmel began with his usual grin. "Great to have you back." "Thanks for having me, Jimmy. Always good to be here," Bernthal replied, relaxed and ready to chat about his new film. The first few minutes went normally. They talked about the movie, and Bernthal shared a funny story about doing his own stunts. The audience laughed along. But then something changed in Kimmel's tone. "So, Jon," Kimmel said, leaning forward with a strange look in his eyes, "I've been reading some interesting things about you lately." Bernthal shifted in his seat. "Oh yeah? What's that?" "Well, I heard your last 3 movies didn't do so well at the box office. Some people are saying you might be losing your touch," Kimmel said with a smirk. This wasn't the usual playful banter. There was a sharp edge to his voice. The audience went quiet. Bernthal blinked, surprised by the sudden change. "I mean, I'm proud of all my work," Bernthal answered calmly. "Not every film is made to break records. Sometimes it's about the story you're telling." Kimmel didn't let up. Right. But isn't it true that you got this role after 2 other actors turned it down? I think everyone was expecting to see Chris Pratt sitting here tonight." The cameras caught Bernthal's jaw tightening. "That's not accurate, Jimmy. I was the first choice for this character." "That's not what I heard," Kimmel continued, almost enjoying the growing tension. "And didn't you get kicked off that Netflix show a few years back? Creative differences, they called it, but word is you were hard to work with." People in the audience looked at each other uncomfortably. This wasn't funny. It was mean. "That's completely false," Bernthal said firmly. "I left that project on good terms to pursue other opportunities. You know how this business works." "Do I? Because I thought in this business, people need to actually be successful to keep getting roles," Kimmel fired back. The audience gasped. "Your last movie made what? Half of what it cost to make? That's gotta hurt, right?" The camera cut to Bernthal, who took a deep breath. He was clearly trying to stay professional. "Look, Jimmy, I came here to talk about Final Strike, not to defend my career. I've been working steadily for 15 years, and I'm proud of that. Not everyone can say the same," Kimmel snickered. 15 years of playing the same tough guy character. Very impressive range." The audience was now completely silent. This wasn't entertainment, it was uncomfortable and cruel. "That's unfair, and you know it," Bernthal replied, his voice steady but firm. "I've played everything from villains to heroes to real-life historical figures. I research every role. I put my heart into my work." "Heart, sure. But talent? That's the question people are asking," Kimmel said with a dismissive wave. "And what about those anger management rumors? I heard you flipped out on the director of your last film." Bernthal sat up straighter. "Okay, that's enough. Those are lies. Plain and simple. I've always been professional on set." "Really? Because I've got sources that say otherwise," Kimmel pressed, holding up his blue note cards as if they contained proof. "What sources? Tabloids? Twitter trolls?" Bernthal challenged. "You're better than this, Jimmy. Or at least I thought you were." The tension in the studio was thick enough to cut with a knife. The audience was frozen, watching the exchange like a car crash in slow motion. "All I'm saying is, maybe there's a reason why the really big roles keep going to other actors," Kimmel continued, twisting the knife. "Maybe it's time to consider a career change." Have you thought about reality TV? I hear Dancing with the Stars is always looking for celebrities. Well, sort of celebrities. That was the final straw. Bernthal placed his hands on his knees and stood up slowly. I've respected you for years, Jimmy. I've been on this show 5 times. But I won't sit here and be insulted for entertainment, he said calmly but firmly. There's a difference between funny jokes and just being mean. You crossed that line tonight. The audience began to murmur. Some people started clapping, supporting Bernthal's stance. Oh, come on, I'm just having some fun, Kimmel said. But the nervousness in his voice was obvious. He hadn't expected Bernthal to stand up to him. No, fun is what we all came here for. This isn't fun. This is bullying and I won't be part of it, Bernthal replied. My mom taught me that when someone disrespects you, you stand up for yourself. So that's what I'm doing. The audience erupted into applause. Kimmel's face froze in shock as he realized the crowd was turning against him. The show's producer could be seen frantically gesturing from the side of the stage. We'll be right back after this break, Kimmel said quickly, forcing a smile as the camera panned away. But Bernthal shook his head. No, I think we should finish this conversation now while the cameras are rolling. His voice was calm but determined. The audience cheered again, louder this time. John, come on, Kimmel said, dropping his sarcastic tone and looking genuinely worried. It's just TV banter. Let's move on and talk about your movie. Now you want to talk about my movie? Bernthal responded, not backing down. After you just spent 5 minutes trying to tear apart my career? That's not how this works, Jimmy. The director was signaling frantically for a commercial break, but the camera operator kept filming. This was too good to cut away from. Look, maybe I went too far with a couple jokes, Kimmel admitted, trying to regain control of the situation. But that's what we do here. We poke fun. No, Bernthal said firmly. What you did wasn't poking fun. You attacked me with false information to try and make me look bad. That's not comedy. That's being a bully. The audience snapped their fingers and clapped in agreement. Someone in the back yelled, Tell him, John. Kimmel's face reddened. He wasn't used to guests standing up to him like this. Listen, if you can't take a joke, maybe late-night TV isn't for you. This isn't about taking a joke, Bernthal replied, leaning forward in his chair. I've been made fun of plenty of times, and I can laugh at myself better than most. But there's a difference between a funny joke and deliberately spreading lies about someone. What lies? Kimmel challenged, his voice rising. Everything I said came from industry sources. Bernthal laughed without humor. Industry sources? Like what? Some random tweets? Gossip columns? Because none of what you said is true and you know it. You're smarter than that, Jimmy. The cameras caught, a bead of sweat forming on Kimmel's forehead. This wasn't going according to plan at all. The truth is, Bernthal continued, my last film made triple its budget. I've never been fired from any project. And I was the first choice for Final Strike. The director wrote the part with me in mind. Well, that's your side of the story, Kimmel said weakly. It's not a side. It's the truth. And you could have checked these facts before trying to embarrass me on national television, Bernthal responded. The audience was completely on his side now. Kimmel tried to regain control. Let's just move on to the next segment. I'm not done, Bernthal interrupted, his voice still level but firm. You mentioned anger issues. Let's talk about that. I've worked with hundreds of crew members and actors over my career. Ask any of them about my behavior on set. I'm sure they'd say nice things to your face, Kimmel said with a nervous laugh. No, they'd tell you I show up early, know my lines, and treat everyone with respect. From the director to the person serving coffee, Bernthal countered. That's what professionals do. The tension in the room was electric. Nobody in the audience was looking at their phones now. All eyes were glued to the confrontation unfolding before them. And what about you, Jimmy? Bernthal asked, turning the tables. "I've heard stories about how you treat your staff when the cameras aren't rolling. Should we talk about that?" Kimmel's face went pale. "That's not what we're discussing here." "No? But I thought you were all about telling the truth tonight, no matter how uncomfortable," Bernthal replied. The audience let out a collective "Oh." Kimmel glanced desperately toward his producer, who was now on the phone looking panicked. "Here's what I think happened," Bernthal continued. "You got some bad information, or maybe you were just having a rough day and decided to take it out on me. Either way, it was unprofessional." "I'm sorry you feel that way," Kimmel said stiffly. "That's not an apology, and you know it," Bernthal responded. "Look, I came here to talk about a movie I worked really hard on, a movie with a great cast, and crew who deserve better than this." The audience was completely silent now, hanging on every word. "The people who watch your show deserve better too," Bernthal added. "They tune in for laughs and entertainment, not to watch someone get bullied with false accusations." Several audience members nodded in agreement. A woman in the front row was recording everything on her phone. Kimmel finally seemed to realize just how badly he had miscalculated. "Listen, Jon, clearly this interview has gone off the rails. If I said things that weren't accurate, then I apologize." "If?" Bernthal repeated. "There's no if about it. You did say things that weren't accurate. And you didn't just say them. You deliberately used them to try and embarrass me." Kimmel loosened his tie, visibly uncomfortable. "Okay, you're right. I apologize." But Bernthal wasn't satisfied with the half-hearted apology. "Here's the thing, Jimmy. Words matter. What you say on this show reaches millions of people. When you spread lies about someone, it can do real damage to their reputation, their career, their life." The producer was now frantically waving his arms, signaling for a commercial break. "Cut to commercial," Kimmel hissed to someone off camera. "No, don't cut away," Bernthal said, looking directly at the camera. "The viewers deserve to see how this ends." Several security guards had appeared at the edges of the set, unsure whether to intervene. The audience was completely riveted, many filming on their phones now. "Jon, I think we need to take a break," Kimmel said, his voice strained. "We can continue this conversation privately." "No, I don't think so," Bernthal replied firmly. "You didn't attack me privately. You did it right here in front of everyone. So this is where we'll resolve it." A woman in the audience shouted, "You tell him, Jon." Others joined in with supportive calls. Kimmel's producer was now on stage, whispering urgently in his ear. Kimmel nodded, then turned back to face Bernthal. "Look, Jon, you're right. I crossed a line tonight," Kimmel admitted, his tone finally serious. "The jokes weren't funny, and the information wasn't accurate. I apologize." Bernthal studied Kimmel's face for a moment, considering the apology. "Why did you do it? We've had good interviews before. What changed tonight?" Kimmel sighed, running a hand through his hair. The audience waited in silence. "Honestly? Ratings," Kimmel confessed. "The network's been pushing for more viral moments, more confrontation. I took it too far." "So you thought humiliating me would help your ratings?" Bernthal asked, his voice level but his eyes intense. "I didn't think it through," Kimmel admitted. "I had these cards from the writing team with these edgy questions, and I just went with it." "Those weren't questions, Jimmy. They were attacks disguised as jokes," Bernthal said. "And they weren't even true." The audience murmured in agreement. The cameras panned across their faces, capturing their reactions. "You're right," Kimmel acknowledged. "And I'm sorry. Truly." This time, his apology sounded genuine. Bernthal nodded slowly, accepting it. "I appreciate that," he said. "But I'm not the only one you owe an apology to. What about your audience? They came here for entertainment, not to watch someone get torn down with lies." Kimmel turned to face the audience directly. "Jon's right. I owe all of you an apology, too. That wasn't entertainment. It was mean-spirited and unprofessional. You deserve better from me and from this show." The audience applauded, appreciating his honesty. "And what about the crew of Final Strike?" Bernthal added. "They worked incredibly hard on this film, and instead of hearing about their work, everyone's going to be talking about this confrontation." Kimmel nodded again. "You're absolutely right. To everyone who worked on Final Strike, I'm sorry I derailed what should have been a celebration of your film." One of the security guards had retreated to the side of the stage, realizing the situation was de-escalating. The producer looked relieved but remained close by. "So where do we go from here?" Kimmel asked. Bernthal thought for a moment. "Well, we've got two choices. I can walk out, which is what I was about to do. Or we can reset and have the conversation we should have had from the beginning. Your call." The audience held their breath, waiting for Kimmel's response. "Let's reset," Kimmel said decisively. "I want to get this right." Bernthal nodded. "Okay, but one more thing, and this isn't just for you, Jimmy, but for everyone in this business. We need to remember that what we say matters. The jokes, the comments, the interviews, they can build people up or tear them down." "You're right," Kimmel agreed. "Sometimes in the race for ratings or clicks, we forget there are real people involved." "Exactly," Bernthal said. "So let's try again. But this time, let's focus on the work, not the gossip." The tension in the room finally began to dissolve. The audience broke into applause, appreciating the honest exchange they'd just witnessed. Kimmel took a deep breath and straightened his tie. "Ladies and gentlemen, Jon Bernthal, star of the new action thriller Final Strike." The audience cheered loudly as Bernthal gave a small smile and settled back into his chair. "So, Jon, I've heard this role was particularly challenging. Can you tell us about preparing for it?" Kimmel asked, his tone genuine and interested. "I'd be happy to," Bernthal replied. "You know, this character was different from anything I've done before." The interview continued, this time with mutual respect. Kimmel asked thoughtful questions about the film, and Bernthal gave honest, engaging answers. The audience was captivated for an entirely different reason now. They were witnessing something rare in television, an authentic moment of accountability and redemption. As the segment concluded, Kimmel reached out to shake Bernthal's hand. "Thank you for staying," he said quietly. "Thank you for listening," Bernthal replied. The show went to commercial, but what had transpired would live far beyond that night's broadcast. Within hours, clips of the confrontation and resolution were trending on every social media platform. The next morning, Bernthal Stands His Ground was trending nationwide. Comments flooded in. "Never seen anyone handle disrespect so professionally. That's how you stand up for yourself without losing your cool." Kimmel finally met someone who wouldn't let him get away with mean jokes. News outlets picked up the story, analyzing the exchange from every angle. Some praised Kimmel for ultimately taking responsibility, while others questioned why the confrontation had been necessary in the first place. 3 days later, Bernthal's film Final Strike opened to larger-than-expected audiences. Many viewers cited the Kimmel interview as what drew them to see the movie. "I wanted to support someone who stands up for themselves with such dignity," one moviegoer told a reporter. Kimmel addressed the incident on his next show, reiterating his apology and announcing changes to the show's approach to guest interviews. "We can be funny without being hurtful," he said, "and that's what we're going to do moving forward." As for Bernthal, he received countless messages from actors and industry professionals thanking him for standing up to the kind of treatment that had become all too common in entertainment. When asked about the incident in a subsequent interview, Bernthal simply said, "I believe in treating people with respect, and I believe in standing up for yourself when that respect isn't given. Nothing more complicated than that." The confrontation that began as an attempt to embarrass ended as a powerful reminder of something simple, but often forgotten in the entertainment world. Behind every joke, every question, and every headline. There are real people with real feelings and real lives.